Hey everyone, Steph Beckett back for another panel. And I'm actually really excited about this one. I'm excited, as I'm sure you guys are, to sit to learn a little bit more about this. And to teach me about this, I have two very awesome guys to join me. So, Eric Snyder and Jordan Christoph. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us, Stephanie.
Of
Yeah,
course.
thanks, Steph.
So,
Appreciate it.
do you guys want to first just take some time to introduce yourselves and your backgrounds a little bit? Eric, do you want to go first?
Actually, Jordan, why don't you go first?
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. I'm trying to figure out who the actual host and moderator is here, but um, no. So I've been in AV for a very long time. Let's just say starting in the 80s. Actually started in audio first, but moved to the dark side of video. And we started Visionary in 1995. And we're interested in convergence onto networks starting in 98. Had our first AVIP product in 2002 and have been kind of in that space ever since. And I had come from the military and medical background and always very interested in what I'll call efficiency, but could also be branded sustainability.
Nice.
Gotcha. A little bit about myself. I had family that was in theme parks, and then I ended up being in theme park management on the entertainment side. The product of the 80s as well. A lot on the audio side. Eventually went in through big scale production, and then we kind of found ways where the military needed that skill experience around 2000. 2003-ish, came over to CTI and been the CTO for about the last 10 years over at CTI.
Nice. Well, awesome. I'll just jump in here then. So let's kind of take a step back and talk about some recent or latest technological advancements in network video distribution that have contributed to that efficiency and therefore sustainability. And y'all feel free to just interrupt me, interrupt each other. Like we can just have a conversation.
Go.
You know,
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
yeah, where I came into it first at CTI, we ended up doing a lot of the kind of the first, and Jordan's even before me, right? It wasn't, what I like is that it wasn't a religion. When this video over IP came out, everyone's like, we're going to put all the AV on the network, and it became a religion to where I'm a little more practical. Why should we do it, or the reasons why? So we were working with military that was doing virtual. That actually caused some of it to happen. And then in 2008-ish, 9-ish, I was presented a company out of Peoria, Illinois. They needed a 144 by 200 720p HDMI matrix. They were a weird company. They did something like the Antiques Roadshow, and all those were interconnecting codecs because you couldn't create an MC at the time, right? So we were at InfoComm in 2008, heard of a company called and knew Andy Whitehead from SVSI. And then we went ahead and deployed that like late 2008-9. And all of a sudden we got it to work, right? And with the multicasting and where it was in that day, it was pretty challenging. So the need wasn't to go put it onto the network. The need was you couldn't get a matrix of that size, right? And we learned a lot from that in our company. So, things that we've learned was that you want folks like Jordan here to make the best encoder possible and not have to pay for that backplaying bit moving pieces, right? So they can concentrate on those 2 points. And if they know their network stuff, especially some of the cool stuff that Visionary is doing with Netgear and doing the VLANs, and oh my God, what they did over in Las Vegas, allow them to do that better instead of all the money kind of going there. The one challenge I maybe put out there was when all this stuff first started happening, we did have folks in the market that were presenting it as cost savings, which I thought was a bad idea.
Okay.
Because basically what they were trying to do is borrow from the IT budget to supplement the AV budget, right? And that's caused this whole craziness. Put it on the network and all that. Shoot, we've been doing this, as you heard from Jordan, since 1998. But it's got to be purposeful, right? And it's got to have a reason behind it. And it's easily doable, but it can't, if you're going to be attentive about it, and we got to really simple version of the network and worldview on that, like, AV over IP, it's not intended, it's intended to be for a purpose and utilize those products, but it's not intended to borrow from the IT budget to save on the AV budget, if that makes sense. Jordan, you want to add to that maybe?
Sure, I'll give a little perspective on that. So, I was doing this in the Stone Age when no one wanted it, actually. Our first product in 2002 was met with complete crickets because it used 70 megabits on the network. Now we have products, using 200 to 800, and everyone's happy. Networks have evolved. But for us, it was always about trying to provide the customer with flexibility, extensibility, and scalability. And if you look at the amount of testing or deployment space where a sort of switch matrix routers went, it's an absolute tiny slice compared to the massive industry of Ethernet, effectively networking, which, everything relies on networking, banking, and has for a long time. And so I think it's really just the realization that, hey, there's so much technology in a network switch at such a cost point and efficiency point with massive amounts of testing that's just a better way to go moving forward. Now, it took a long time, and it actually took the largest player in our industry to educate the market. We were there with a tiny little voice squeaking, hey, this is great. But until, there was a megaphone in the marketplace to educate the vast majority of sort of, there's early adopters like Eric, and then there are people who, wait a little bit longer, and then there's the flood of it. And now we're finally seeing that hockey stick where most large installations wouldn't dream of doing anything that wasn't IP based. But that's very, very new, really. And sort of the pandemic caused, a big movement in that while people were working on infrastructure. So I think it's really about allowing the customer choices and, the PoE revolution, where you then don't need the power guys to source mains voltage. All of those things have really come together in a great way. And obviously, Netgear has done some great things at big scale projects. Extreme Networks are doing some good stuff. So yeah, I think that we're kind of entering the golden age of that. I can't speak to this as much as Eric might, but the management between the IT department and the AV department, I kind of see more as really a question of a sort of subject matter expert. So audio is complicated, and doing it right takes a lot of work. Most of our video is actually already in its final form when we move it. We don't process it so much. So the IT department is not really going to have audio specialists historically. But anyway, I don't know what you think on that, Eric. But I guess we should steer back towards sustainability, and I'm kind of going a little afar. I'll let you handle that stuff, but I just wanted to get Eric's thoughts on that part of it.
No, I'm with you. And on the sustainability too, it kind of like, I thought it was, you got to make choices, right, when you're building a product, right? And you, it's like, you don't want to make the best product that no one wants to buy. And what I like, and I'm not saying that you guys have taken any shortcuts, you put your priorities first and learn your client. And I think it's amazing, like with yourself on the same sustainability side, that you guys kept that in mind on aligning your products, keeping it at PoE. I think that was a brilliant move. That differentiates you guys a little bit. And once again, on the same sustainability, the amount of power that you're utilizing on these products, or you're wanting to get into PoE plus and all that stuff, boy, we're increasing cost across the network, utilizing more power, so on and so on for it. So I think there are several, let's call them really good products on the market, but there are differentiators around them. And as we're talking about more on the sustainability side, what's interesting are the choices that manufacturers like Visionary and the others are making on, I could have it do 5 more things, but then I have to move it up and not be PoE, right? As we talk about some of the sustainability stuff, Jordan.
Yeah, actually, not trying to cut you off, Steph. So, but I did have one more point if I could make it. Would that be okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's funny. I'd love to take credit for having been focused on sustainability. I mean, well, so what it really comes out of is, I think that great engineering comes from focusing on efficiency and what I'll call an optimal adjacent solution for the customer. So, what features do they really need for the 80th or 90th percentile of the market? Can I get that in one box to make it efficient? And then how do I make that box as efficiently as possible, both in terms of the size, the parts in it, and I always look at what can I remove from this and still do what it's doing. And I think out of that flows the sustainability because at Visionary we make deeply embedded products for a long time, and fans are our enemy because once you're putting a fan in a product, it means that you've got a lot of heat there, and that's great if you're in the rack and you're in a conditioned room. But if you're out at the endpoint, we basically, with the wall plate, we were confronted with a lot of choices, and we decided to really make sure that we didn't need a fan in that just because of the lifetime implications. So it's nice that sustainability flows from an efficient design.
So you kind of are touching on the next question that I wanted to ask, but could you both just kind of talk about the importance of power consumption in network video distribution and why potentially reducing power usage and making that could make it a little more sustainable and help potentially save operational costs?
Sure. Jordan, you want to go first?
Sure. So yeah, I think so. If you look at the whole chain of power and the power system, I'm involved in some things on efficiency in other things, some nonprofits, and so I've looked at a lot of stuff. Typically, like in Santa Barbara, the power that comes to the wall from us is about 50% efficient. So by the time it gets to our wall, it's lost half through the transmission line, et cetera, from the generation. And then from there, you're going, in our case, in PoE, you're going into a network switch, and it has a power supply system to convert that AC to DC. I won't get too technical, but let's say it's 90% efficient in an awesome one, or 80 or 90%. So you lose another 10% there. So now every device that pulls power from that network switch, if it pulls, half as much, it's saving in that efficiency, essentially more than half its own power utilization. And so it goes all the way down. And then for projects in a temperature environment, like maybe the Northeast or the South or increasingly the West, if you're in a space and you put that heat into it, now you've got to remove that heat. So you have air conditioning. So it's really a double whammy. I mean, as kind of a simple thing, we did kind of a little bit of a comparative analysis at the Resorts World project, and obviously it's a large number of units, so smaller places would save less, but they're saving approximately $50,000 a year in electrical cost when you look at both the usage and the air conditioning with our product compared to the nearest thing at the time. So and that's not always the case. There are a lot of efficient units out there, but it all adds up. It's heat in and then heat out. So
another perspective, I think, a way of looking at it as well is, the thing is if you can get down to PoE, first of all, you got a limit of 110 outlet that's got a power switch somewhere on the circuit, right? So you want to get everything on, your ports or the way you want to design. So I like Jordan's definition of efficiency right here. So if you don't address it there, and you're going to use like the first gen of a lot of these products or some other products, external power supplies, wallboards, think about how much product is going into that box and the extra pieces that were going into it, or I'm going to include it anyway. So that way I'm taking care of my integrator that's going to go into the trash. And, we're talking plastics, we're talking bigger things like that. So not only do you have the power savings, the more efficient that you can make the design with the right amount of materials to do it, the right thing for the job, the better off you're going to be in that talk for the environment. So not only do you get the power savings, now we probably don't have to put a wallboard in there. We probably don't need the bag. We don't need the twist tie. We don't need accidentally someone unplugging it, right? And you're saving on those pieces are going to do a heck of a lot more damage than going from PoE to PoE plus, right? So, or needing a mid-span power supply, and then the extra boxes and all that comes with it. So I like Jordan's viewpoint on make your system efficient as it needs to be for the tasks that needs to get done.
So what strategies or technologies do you recommend for beginning to minimize your power consumption within distributing video, if that is something that someone is going to start considering now?
For myself, everything generates heat, right? Like Jordan was stating here, right? So, just the natural move from maybe I'm not dogging HD based heat technology, but the Valens chipsets and all that they're very thermal. They require a lot of heat. If you ever looked at your DM matrix or name your other favorite brand matrix, nothing wrong with it. It's what the technology is, but you're going to see 7 fans or a ton of heat load coming from that, right? Just the thought of the IP systems, we're now at a much less heat load, going to that technology instead. So the technology you choose is going to determine how much power you're using. And a lot of those devices do great things. They can actually carry what HD based heat can carry 100 watts of power across of it. It was made to do that, right? But do I need it? And the problem is I can't turn it off individually.
Yeah.
So going back to efficiency and efficient designs, like Jordan was saying, just that start right there, you're already going down the road of doing something that is already going to be efficient and efficient on heat, efficient on boxes, efficient on everything else that you're packing it with.
Yeah, I think also we haven't really even started to maximize the possibilities. I've started talking to some people about the possibility of actually putting things into standby using the control system rather than autonomously. One of the things we ran into early on, a long time ago, we would have a box go into a low power state, but then people would switch to it. It would take longer to come on, and they didn't like that. And this is many, many years ago, and so we kind of removed that. But the possibility still remains that if the control systems are there to make it explicit that they could, sort of put the device in standby and then bring it out before they were planning on using it in a few minutes or whatever, if they have conference room scheduling and all of this. So we haven't even started to kind of take advantage of that. We could cut the power usage of most of these systems in half. A lot of them are running full blast at night when a facility is completely unused. And so, there's some work there, but there's still a long way to go on that. To shift things just a moment, you were talking about extra box stuff. It's a battle as a manufacturer. So we have manufacturing of boxes in Arizona as well as Taiwan. And the default for most of these things is to use a generic plastic and thing, and they have all of their standard methods. And it was hard here for us. We're in almost converted over, but we pushed for cardboard only and getting rid of the plastic and trying not to have the zip ties, and looking at, can we put our Euroblock connectors in the box without a plastic bag? How do people react to that? And that's, the amount of effort that actually goes into that is surprising, and people don't think about it, because if you just do the default, that contract manufacturing, the people building circuit boards and all that, they're that some of them are into that and others are don't have a waste concept. So yeah, it's definitely challenging, and you have to put some effort into it.
Yeah. We had a question come in from one of our audience members. Chris asked, what's your experience with PON networks?
Are they talking about an optical network, or I'm not quite sure what that acronym means in this context.
Okay, I will let him, maybe work on that question a little bit, and then we can come back to it. So, next question then is, what metrics that can you use or do you use to measure the sustainability or like the efficiency of video distribution systems? Because like you said, a lot goes into it, right? So it's not only like taking the heat down, it's working on the packaging and all of this. Like, is there a metric to, or a few metrics to even measure, like, is this working? Is this more sustainable? Or is all this time and money and everything that we've used to make this, try to make this more sustainable, like, is it balancing out? Like, sorry, that's kind of a long-winded question, but I'm just curious, is there a proper metric or anything?
Jordan, just right off the bat right there, Resorts World, I think, is a really great case example, because you guys actually went through that. Their product is PoE. There were other products that were PoE plus that could have been in there. And I think Jordan could just speak to the fact right there alone, how much money and how much sustainability on the heat load that was reduced, and on the amount of power savings they had, right, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, in this particular case, it was about a case of using around 30 watts per node versus about 7 or 8. So, it's effectively a 3.5, 4 to 1 kind of thing. I think that I think, Steph, on your question, it would be really interesting to me. I know that in the power industry, so for you're looking at sustainable power versus fossil, there are tools that can do that, online tools. I'm not aware of one. So on the electrical side, it's pretty easy to do that.
Right.
Although it depends on where you are. How the efficiency of the power you get from the wall varies dramatically depending on where you are. But for like, if I'm making a box, I'm not aware of anyone with a software solution where you could put in, what does it have in terms of package, and all of that, and come up with like a lead score. Buildings have that, but I'm not aware of anything in our industry. That would be a really interesting thing for someone to, a company, startup or something.
What I would,
a lead score, but for this, yeah.
what I would also look at is the efficiency of the design too, right? So, all right, I'm going to go put in an AV over IP system. How many boxes do I need, right? Is the other side of that equation. So if I don't need another box to switch all my AV over IP items, right? Well, I got rid of a box. If I'm doing HD-based T, right? Just the metal and the electronics alone. Do I need a encoder, decoder, router, and another box to encode and decode back out? Well, just the box count alone could actually be a really good metric that you would want to do, and you can do it in pounds of waste or however you want to handle that, right? And all the packing material and all the accessories that came along with it.
Yeah, there's also challenges in the supply chain, meaning that it would be nice to sort of drop ship everything, but the reality of this is, in terms of quality control, at Visionary we have to bring everything in house, so we have to ship everything to us and out. And then really, at least we're then doing a big bulk shipment to us. And kind of going out, but most or in this case, most integrators don't want to keep a lot of stock of your stuff, so you do end up with more shipments, and that's one thing that that we're working with. But certainly, one thing I really like about working with Eric at CTI is, well, they're very sharp. Eric is certainly one of the smartest people in our industry, and I think that the feedback that I get is super valuable. I'm sitting here at the office, and I don't get out much, meaning I'm not on customer sites much. And so getting the pain points back from Eric really helps us. And I'm not hearing too much yet from the end users about sustainability. So the question is, who's going to drive this in the industry, and how do we create that awareness? It is great that we have people thinking about it. And I think that some of it is in the actual cost, but a lot of it can be hidden, meaning that, ultimately our products, we try to be competitive in the market space on price. Now, is somebody else, is sort of sustaining that price based upon a model where there's revenue somewhere coming, so, depending on the size of your company, just not through any intention, but just that scale, it's harder to know where the balance is. It's like, when you pay for a gallon of gas at the pump, what's in that cost? It's really hard to know. You just know that box A costs this much and box B costs that much. And, there can be a wide difference in the sustainability of those, but the cost as perceived by you is not readily apparent. So it's very hard to do it from that side. So I do think that manufacturing and integration are probably better places to drive it.
Yeah, the other thing too, let me take a weird angle on this for a second.
Let's do it.
What's really odd is it's back to the efficiency on solving the problem at hand, right?
Right.
For example, if I told you that I'm going to increase my projector from a 10,000 lumen projector to a 30,000 lumen projector, do you think that I saved energy? I actually won a lead score on that because we didn't need the lights on anymore, and we could do shades in the room, right? So spending more on that brighter projector so they don't have to have the lights on in the room and not even put lighting in, and depending on natural lighting, even though you're eating more energy right there, got them lead credits to be able to get the building gold certified, right? So when we're thinking about it, applying efficiency into the design, you're going to make choices. And actually, I think if you're following that very, very well, you're going to kind of naturally do it because you're building it to solve the problem in the most efficient manner. Does that make sense? Instead of someone looking at a box going, oh, type A versus type B. Yeah, we all want to be socially responsible. There's got to be a market that's going to pay extra for some of that if we're going to do it, right? But actually, I think just going down and solving it in the most efficient way possible for the goal you're trying to get to, you're going to find yourself 70 to 80% there already right off the bat.
It's going to take like looking big picture instead of being like, well, I'm looking at this one, I'm looking at this one. This one uses less power, so I'm going to pick this one. You got to look at your specific use case, your specific install, and make the best choice for that. I get that. So would you say that that is your biggest piece of advice, Eric, for someone who is trying to design a sustainable network video distribution system, is to, just really take a look at what that specific install needs?
Yeah, and my recommendation to everyone is, look, everyone's sitting here trying to plan 5 years ahead, right? Do I need 4K, 444 high definition? Do I need a 10 gigabit network right now, right? Well, the thing is right now we're only running 1080p to our projectors. Our projectors are 1080p, right?
Yeah.
Am I suggesting that we only do that? No, we might put in infrastructure that can support a higher resolution. But when you're looking at the use case and what you're going to solve for now, I recommend only maybe looking 3 years out. Does that make sense? You don't know what's coming down the pipe. Anyone in this room that tells you they can predict that is just lying to you. They're wrong. They're always wrong, right?
Nobody's safe future proof.
No. And the thing is, it's like, okay, so then fine. If you're not using it now, do you want to spend more for fiber optic and the ability to do 8K now that you may not use for 5 years? Or do I make it efficient and let's solve for the problem at hand right now? Make it incredibly reliable. And why would I put extra stuff in your rack and in the system that's going to cost you more right now?
Right.
Why don't I actually make it so it's very efficient? It looks very good. It suits the needs for now. Instead of, I don't let perfection be the enemy of good, I think, in these designs. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly the case. First off, I don't think anyone will look good in 8K. I only look okay in standard def, but nobody looks good in 8K. And my comment on when marketing or somebody rolls out future proof is, my statement is the future is not future proof. So there's really no way to do that. And I think that to the extent you can take an overall view of a design, that's always, you got to start in a building with the foundation. I grew up in construction, and if the foundation's wrong, the building's never right.
Right.
And so, picking the right sort of architecture is all of that. I see Joey D is coming up, and he's very much into the architecture of these systems, and I'm totally going to annoy him by stealing his thunder. You do, in fact, get what you draw. So anyway, I think that that we can all do a lot better in this industry, and I'm just glad that some more people now are coming up with that term. As an engineer or scientist, whatever, ultimately all systems must come into sustainability. Otherwise, they run away and bad things happen, regardless of what it is. And so we definitely, as an industry, need to address this for our own benefit as well as other people. So thank you.
Yeah, and I think at like the very least, even if sustainability, like on its face, is not a term that you were super concerned with in your business, you can at least look at power consumption, because, if you're taking up too much power, like something bad's going to happen. Like you don't want to overload your rack, you don't want to overload a circuit. Like, at the very least, you can look at heat and power consumption, and like that's already like a step in the right direction.
The other step is when we break it down and thinking in this method of, hey, I got a starting point and I got an ending point, right? I don't need an 8x8. I only need an 8x2. So I just became more efficient by thinking in those terms right there, which was the big advantage to cause everyone to really cross the line in AV over IP adoption anyway, right? And then the fact that Cisco's got a bigger R&D budget than the entire AV industry, right? So they know how to move data, right? So with those things and combining the efficiency there, once again, I think Jordan's got the word of the day is that you want it to be efficient and designed for the problem at hand instead of trying to create a new one 5 years later that anyone that tells you knows what it's going to be is lying to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, one thing. I think the gentleman's question was probably about passive optical networks. I would just call it GPON is what I usually run into. And those are great. They're not PoE, so the power has to come in separately. But in large deployments, for instance, the room televisions at Resorts World use a GPON network. The challenge there is that Owens Corning has a licensing fee that's ongoing with that, so that can impact the cost structure. But I believe for large room counts at big facilities where you have a lot of end nodes, that can be good. It doesn't really affect our side of it, because really if the IP connectivity, the internet protocol, Ethernet, if that's working properly over the system, it doesn't affect us. However, in those cases, because our boxes are PoE, they would need to find a way to deliver that kind of PoE into those systems. So.
Okay. Do either of you think that there are any emerging technologies that are kind of in the works right now that will eventually play a big role in sustainable network video distribution, or even just making it more efficient? Is there anything on the horizon that's exciting to either of you?
There's a few things, right? You're seeing what the possibilities can be now through things like SMPTE 2110, 22 over 1 gigabit.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing the sphere being powered by that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually more about adoption and making adoption easier is what I believe. There's some great things that I've seen at Infocom. I mean, like, for example, I have a box, I plug it into a switch, the switch recognizes the box and configures it onto the network. The barrier of doing these designs was always the cost of how many hours you're going to burn trying to make the darn thing work, right? I think manufacturers, and I think the innovation coming through is going to be on how do we do this, make it a little bit easier, and leverage that technology so you can get more adoption and more deployment, right? So, will we ever get to a world where everything is going to be on the same standard to talk to everything? My opinion is no, because clients won't pay the 10 to 20% premium to have an open standard. They have to vote with that first. As soon as they're willing to do that, there's products on the market right now, but every user group I'm at, they're like going, no, we're not going to go to that open standard. So what I'm seeing right now is maybe it's more about get that adoption down a lot easier and a lot easier on the manageability for it, and then you're going to see even more adoption from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would see it as really at the control system and management level to allow devices to go into a sleep state. Because let's say, you take one of our boxes, uses 8 watts today, right? Maybe you could get that to 4 watts by having a new generation of ICs with very small geometries. But are you going to get to 2? Are you going to get to 1? Probably not. But if you have a device that has a 10% duty cycle, and I can take it to using 500 milliwatts for 90% of the time, that's going to be a much bigger saving than trying to make the device use half the power but all the time. So we're really trying to do that, and we have some upcoming things that address that. On the configuration front, we continue to work with Netgear to make things easier and easier. And then we kind of have a cool thing at Fontainebleau that was kind of the newest casinos in Vegas, with a thing called Fabric Attach, which allows us to communicate with Extremes switches and sort of handle some stuff and pre-configure at the factory a little bit more to lower that load on integration customers. So anyway,
Very cool.
Thank you.
Well, I know we're about out of time, so the last thing I'm going to ask of both of you is to tell everyone who is watching the best place to network with and or just connect with you guys offline here. So, Eric, do you want to start?
Sure. Eric.Snyder@cti.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. More than happy to engage with anyone who wants to connect.
Awesome. Jordan, what about you?
Yeah, certainly the easiest way is to go to our website, visionary-av.com. If you want my contact, it's /jchristoph.vcf. So it's just a virtual card on there with my first initial and last name.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This was so fun to get in chat and learn a little bit on my side of, getting to pick your brain and everything. So I really appreciate it. And thank you to Visionary for sponsoring the panel. This was so much fun. Thanks again, you guys. We are going to go to a Visionary or a video real quick after this, and then we're going to come back and Megan is going to host a panel all about enhancing meeting room audio. We'll be right back.
Hi, good morning. This is Louis Eig with Visionary Solutions at Infocom 2024. This year we're happy to announce we are releasing and shipping our MV5 multi-viewer. So this product is all IP based, so every encoder on a network is available as a source to the multi-viewer. The multi-viewer is capable of putting up to 4 different images on a single output, gets streamed to any decoder on the network or all decoders on the network. So our multi-viewer is available now, shipping now. Come see us at Infocom 2024 and visit visionary-av.com for more information.